The heavy security plating groaned as the Archduchess Alara pressed her back against the cold, vibrating bulkhead. Above her, the Aegis Prime hub was shrieking. Not a drill. The red emergency lighting pulsed, casting long, bloody shadows across the face of the man kneeling in the debris. Kalen Voss didn't look like a commander now. He looked like a mess. A smear of blue-tinted hydraulic grease ran from his jawline to his ear, a stubborn, mundane anchor that seemed absurdly out of place amidst the carnage. He was ignoring the screams of the dying delegates, his fingers buried deep in the guts of a severed power conduit. "Kalen, we have to move," Alara hissed, her fingers white as she gripped her neural diadem. "The Vorkul are already in the lower tiers. If the thermal detonator goes off, the blast radius is—" A roar from the corridor, sounding like grinding tectonic plates, swallowed the rest of her thought. He didn't flinch. "Hold the diadem," Kalen commanded, his voice devoid of its usual technical stutter. "I need the light." 20 minutes earlier, the hub had been a portrait of stagnant diplomacy. Alara had walked the promenade, her purple robes trailing behind her like a silk wake. She was the apex of her kind, an Athelian royal who measured life in centuries and power in star systems. The delegates of 100 worlds had bowed as she passed, their containment suits hissing in reverence. It was the expected rhythm. It was a bore. And then, she had seen the ion soot. It was on the hands of the technician working beneath a refreshment matrix. While the rest of the station preened, Kalen Voss had been elbows deep in the infrastructure. He was a human, a species that had only recently crawled out of its own gravity well. To Alara, they were a blink in the cosmic eye, unremarkable, transient, which meant the readings were wrong. Alara had paused, her curiosity a sharp needle in her mind. She had used her royal bypass to peer into his file. It was a wall of black ink, redacted missions, first contact protocols, and a title that made her breath hitch. Commander. She watched him now, 3 paces away, as he twisted a copper filament with a surgeon's precision. He wasn't just fixing a light. He was rerouting the station's life support to seal the breach. The grease on his cheek caught the red glare, a blue streak of reality in a dying world. "Archduchess," he said, not looking up, "I hope you can fight as well as you can spy." The floor plates of the Aegis Prime hub continued their rhythmic, low-frequency thrum against Alara's boots, a mundane anchor that felt like the station's own failing heartbeat. She watched Kalen Voss stand. The transition was absolute. He didn't just stop fixing the conduit. He shed the skin of a technician as if it were a heavy, unnecessary coat. "Shaw, report," Kalen snapped into his comms. "If the secondary stabilizers are blown, the pressure differential will." A violent tremor threw Alara against the wall, silencing the thought before it could form. The Vorkul entered the chamber not as diplomats, but as a tidal wave of chitin and ancient, rhythmic fury. They were apex predators, their sword claws glistening with the frost of the vacuum, moving with a speed that defied their massive bulk. Kalen didn't retreat. He stepped forward, his posture shifting into a stance of such calculated lethality that even the Vorkul paused, sensing a threat that didn't match his small human frame. He spoke. The language was a guttural, grinding series of phonemes that sounded like stones being crushed in a hydraulic press. It was a warrior's dialect, restricted and sacred, and hearing it from a human was like seeing a house cat roar with the voice of a lion. The lead Vorkul lowered its blades, its compound eyes clicking in a gesture of sudden, sharp respect. "My people have a saying," Kalen said, his voice dropping to a calm, terrifying silk. "The strongest warrior is the one who wins without fighting, but the smartest warrior knows exactly where to strike to make sure the fight never happens again." Alara watched him negotiate with the monsters. It was a deadly ballet of linguistics and raw, unyielding presence. Kalen Voss, the man with ion soot on his hands and a redacted soul, was a bridge warrior who had spent his life bleeding in the dark so that princesses could play at peace in the light. The terrorists were neutralized in a blur of synchronized motion. Kalen moved through the remaining smoke with a singular, quiet efficiency that made the elite Athelian guards look like children playing with wooden toys, his every step a testament to a life spent in the crucible of first contact wars where a single misplaced word or a flinch could end an entire civilization before it truly began. He stopped in front of Alara. He reached up, his soot-stained hand hovering near her face. He didn't touch her. He simply adjusted the neural diadem, which had slipped during the chaos. The peace treaty was signed 3 hours later. Alara stood on the observation deck as Kalen's unmarked transport prepped for departure. She looked down at her hands. They were still stained with the charcoal dust of the breach. She didn't wipe it off. A single, bruised silhouette remained on the glass. How much of our history is built on the backs of those we choose not to see? Subscribe to join the archive of the extraordinary, and we'll explore the hidden legends of the frontier together. We'll be back tomorrow.